Good afternoon. My name is Rachel Loria. I'm a disability rights advocate at Disability Law Center of Virginia, and I'm also a self-advocate. I've grown up with disabilities, so I've kind of learned to navigate the world as a person with a disability, but also as a disability rights advocate. Today, I'm going to be talking with you a little bit about vocational rehabilitation and the client assistance program that Disability Law Center of Virginia has. So we're going to go ahead and share the screen. So let's start with what vocational rehabilitation actually is. Vocational rehabilitation they are services that might be useful to support you if you have a disability and that disability limits you in getting, keeping, or advancing in a job. Those VR services are typically provided by one of two agencies. One would be the Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services. We're going to call that DARS. And the second one is the Department for the Blind and Vision Impaired, and we're going to call that DBVI. So services can start pretty early. Services can start if you are a student in high school or a parent of a student in high school. Pre-employment transition services are provided by DARS or DBVI, and that can start as early as age 14. So it's important to remember that these services that we're going to talk about right now can assist if you are a student in high school or a parent of a student in high school. They can assist with transition planning. And pre-employment transition services, which are the services available to high school students, can consist of 5 separate services, and we're going to talk about each one individually. The first one is job exploration counseling. The second one would be work-based learning experiences. The third one would be counseling on training and educational options. Fourth one is workplace readiness training. And the fifth one is an introduction into self-advocacy and how to advocate for your needs. So let's start with job exploration counseling. DARS or DBVI can work with a student, like we said, at age 14 or higher. They can work with students and families to determine what careers the student is interested in. It's really important here that the family is included in this discussion. These assessments can be done either orally with a written career interest inventory, or if the student has a little more difficulty reading, it can be done with a picture inventory. So this is with a DARS counselor or a DBVI counselor. We'll sit down with the student and the family and figure out what their strengths are, what their interests are, and what kinds of needs or assistance they may need working. So this type of inventory can be really helpful if the student doesn't know what type of career they're interested in, or if they have a lot of interests and they need to focus in on a specific career. So the second one is work-based learning experiences. We also call this trial work experience, or TWEs. In this stage, the counselor can take students to different workplaces so that they can learn skills necessary for a specific workplace. For example, if a student wants to work in a grocery store or in a retail environment, the DARS counselor or the DBVI counselor can take that student to that specific workplace, and they can start to have a trial work experience and see what life looks like in specific jobs or in specific positions, and they can see really what skills they're going to need to learn for those specific jobs. The third one is counseling on training and educational options. Now, when I'm talking about this with high school students, they often think that this only means a 4-year college. And no, it does not mean just a 4-year college. It can be any kind of education after high school. And I do have that DARS can work with the family, but DARS or DBVI can work with the family and the student to see what education options exist after high school and what's going to be the best fit. This can include vocational school, this can include community college, any kind of education after college, or it could be a four-year college. And if it relates to your work goal that you're going to establish with DARS or DBVI, VR can sometimes assist in paying for school. The next one is workplace readiness training. These are usually the soft skills necessary for work. These can include interview skills, resume writing, or even social skills for the work environment. And DARS or DBVI can work with the individuals to help them learn skills that are necessary for the work environment. There's some students who need social skills training in order to be a better employee. So DARS can sometimes help to provide some of that social skills training or peer support training to prepare the individual for employment. And the last one is an instruction in self-advocacy. This is really, really important, and it's learning how to advocate for yourself and when it's appropriate to do that, both in the school setting after high school, in the higher education setting, and also in the work setting, how to advocate for accommodations when you need accommodations. And this is a skill that DARS or DBVI can help you learn. So when can you start receiving VR services? We recommend that as soon as possible, especially if you're a student in high school. You talk with DARS or you talk with DBVI counselor, and you ask them to help you fill out an application for services after high school. So if you're receiving services in high school, you need to meet with your DBVI or your DARS counselor and ask them to help you fill out an application for adult post-education services. Another thing that DARS or DBVI may be able to help with would be assistive technology. Now, when I say assistive technology, I'm talking about anything that can be bought or customized, bought off the shelf or customized to an individual that helps that individual with activities of daily living. For example, they can be high-tech or they can be low-tech. Examples of high-tech assistive technology could be something like an iPad or a laptop. Examples of lower-tech assistive technology could be something like a magnifying glass that could help an individual if they need larger print, or like a screen reader, or like a visual schedule. Please note that assistive technology can sometimes be paid for by DARS or by DBVI, but it has to relate to the employment goal and you have to meet eligibility criteria for that. So that's something you need to speak about with your DARS counselor or your DBVI counselor. But if you are receiving assistive technology and you're in high school, please keep in mind that usually when you graduate, the high school keeps that assistive technology. So it's important to start planning for that while you're still in school. So what other services might be helpful that DARS or DBVI could provide? One example is job coaching. That is having a job coach from DARS or DBVI be present with you while you are learning a job and helping you to learn a job and phasing themselves out so that you can be as independent as possible. DARS or DBVI can also help you with interview skills and learning to look for jobs. And this is important because this is not just high school students. This can be even after you've graduated high school. If you have a disability and you need assistance in looking for a job or staying employed or advancing in your job, you can reach out to DARS or DBVI and they may be able to help you. They can also help you in teaching you skills that you need for specific jobs. They can also help you sometimes with transportation to and from work. If that's a barrier to you getting a job, DARS or DBVI may be able to assist in helping you find that kind of transportation to get to and from work. Finally, they can help with what we call work-related expenses. That can include things like interview attire, or it can also help, it could also include what we call a benefits analysis. What that is many people believe that if they're getting SSI or SSDI, that they cannot work. And a benefits analysis would be having a counselor sit down with you and help you figure out how much you can earn without losing your benefit. And they can assist, DARS or DBVI can assist with that. So finally, they can help, DARS or DBVI can also assist in advocating for reasonable accommodations. Employers are required to provide reasonable accommodations, but it's to their employees, but it's important to understand that an employer can't provide you a reasonable accommodation until they know that you need those accommodations. Now, that does not mean that you're required to disclose your disability right up front, but like I said, the employer can't assist you in reasonable accommodation until they know that you need a reasonable accommodation. Usually the employer is the one that determines if accommodations are reasonable. However, if you feel you need assistance advocating for reasonable accommodations, you can always contact your vocational rehabilitation agency, DARS or DBVI, or you can contact Disability Law Center, and we can also sometimes provide you some guidance. So how do you know if you're eligible for DARS or DBVI services? Like we had said earlier, you have to have a disability to be eligible for DARS or DBVI services. You also have, that disability has to limit you in getting, keeping, or advancing in a job, either being promoted, finding the job to begin with, or keeping that job. So if you're interested in reaching out about services, if you are visually impaired, you can call DBVI at 804-371-3151 or toll free at 800-622-2155. If you have a disability that is not a vision impairment, you can contact the Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services, DARS, at 804-662-7000 or toll free at 800-552-5019. So if you are currently receiving services from vocational rehabilitation, from DARS or DBVI, and you're having issues with those services, either you feel like they're not listening to you, they're trying to close your case, they won't open a case, you can always call the Disability Law Center at 804-225-2042 or toll free at 1-800-552-3962. We have our intake specialist on duty Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 8:30 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and she can help to connect you with what we call our subject matter experts, who are people who are knowledgeable in our office in the field that you need assistance in. Or you can request services online through www.dlcv.org/get-help, and you can submit a request for services there. So once again, our client assistance program, which is what we're talking about today, make sure that we can advocate for Virginians who have disabilities and are not receiving vocational rehabilitation services, or they're either not receiving them or they're not happy with the services that they are receiving. I want to thank everyone for attending this afternoon, and like I said, if you have any questions, please contact the Disability Law Center of Virginia. The toll-free number is 1-800-522-3962, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 8:30 a.m. until 4 p.m. I want to thank everyone for attending this afternoon, and I hope that this has been useful for you. Have a great day.